Hi, this is my challenge for the LT industry for the conference coming up in 2016. Let's get started then. I'm going to quickly explain who the users are for the project I have in mind, then show the user experience I'd like to give them before actually turning to the technology which I would like to build in order to offer that experience to those users. It's called Hashtag Platform, which is underpinned by a combination of technologies called Hashtag Engine, and well, you'll understand it all by the end of this video. So who are the users I'm talking about? I want to build a platform called Hashtag Platform to support communities of interest. These are, if you know anything about communities of interest or communities of practice, groups of people, informal networks of people with a common interest, usually online, often with an offline component, conferences and so forth. And the whole point of these communities is that they apply the collective knowledge of all of the members' knowledge and experience. They apply that collective knowledge to each member's problems. In other words, it's people sharing problems and solutions and ideas and resources and stories amongst each other. And people don't do this for purely altruistic reasons. They do it to network, to raise their visibility, to establish mind share for their expertise and so forth. If you've ever joined a LinkedIn group and contributed something to somebody's question, then you've been part of a community of interest there. So communities of interest are very popular. The cliche is that community of interest is a community that learns from each other and they collectively raise their level of knowledge. In Europe in particular, communities of interest have a tough time getting started across language borders. There's good content, there's useful people and useful content in lots of different countries, but it's all locked away behind language barriers, which is where advanced language technologies can play a big part. You have to understand that one of the key reasons people join and contribute to a community of interest is that that community has a library of useful resources, stuff which is useful, which the members themselves contribute. So it's crowdsourced. And a really good library has got lots of content in it, it's extensive, but it's also fine-grained. In other words, it's been categorized really, really well with a really detailed taxonomy so that you can find exactly the right content that you want that meets your needs. This gets complicated when you're talking about a multilingual community because you might be describing resources that are actually written in 20-odd different languages. Now you can get around that by describing the resource in English, even if it's in French, and then everybody has to understand English. But even better if the description can be translated or at least machine translated. And it's absolutely essential that the taxonomy used is multilingual, so people can find their way in their own language. Why is this useful? I think I mentioned it before. A really good library of useful resources raises the collective intelligence of everybody in the community. It helps people discover content which they would not have otherwise discovered. But it also helps people network together because if you discover a piece of content which somebody else has put into the library, you also discover that person who put it in there. It's a networking tool. One of the problems these things face, though, is chicken and egg problem, classic problem here. People discover a new community and there's nothing in the library because there's no one in the community, and there's no one in the community because there's nothing in the library. Quite often what you need to do is launch the community with a lot of content already in the library to get things started. So as I said before, a library for a community needs to be extensive, lots of content in there, but it needs to be fine-grained, very specific taxonomy, very accurately classified. Wanting lots of stuff in the library means you have to make it easy for people to add content, but making it fine-grained means that you need to make it hard for them. And this is where machine-assisted human curation comes in. This is what I'm looking to build. So before I show you the technological components of that, I want to show you what the end result would be. Now, this is not mock-ups, these are wireframes, so apologies for that. The key area here is to use faceted search. So This is some wireframes from a prototype which I'm currently developing. And as you can see, the actual navigation here is a natural language phrase. So this is the home page. It says, show me the best content about all themes, about all countries, written originally in any language at any time. And there's hundreds of thousands of results in that. The thing is that anything in color is in fact a drop-down. So you can refine that. And so now we've got all content, so all content rather than the best content, about the environment, about all countries in any language, written this week, and there are 16 results. I can then refine that further, because if it's about the environment, it's because these items have been tagged biodiversity or renewable energy or whatever. So let's narrow it down a bit further. All content tagged wind farm this week. Let's widen it again, make it this year. So now I've got 49 resources tagged wind farm. Let's refine it a bit more now. Let's add wildlife. So now I've got all content tagged wind farm and wildlife about all countries written originally in any language this year. So I've gone from millions of records to 5 in under 1 minute. That's the power of faceted search and the particular interface that I've got here. What it requires, though, it requires that all of those content items, all of those resources, have been accurately tagged using a multi-level, multilingual taxonomy. After that, I might decide to apply some premium services. So, for example, I could tick a couple of boxes and say, give me machine translations of those titles and abstracts, because those search results are in all languages. I chose any language, after all. So I could get machine translations, or I could get all sorts of other things, like auto summary. Take 5 articles and give me an auto summary, or do a sentiment analysis, that sort of thing. So that's the thing I'd like to build, but how does the content get in there? Well, I want to take you back in a little history lesson now to a website that's dead now, but it was launched 7 or 8 years ago. It's called Blogging Portal. And it worked like this. It was purely human curation. A bunch of people, we called them editors, they were volunteers, were interested in tracking opinions written in blog posts about EU policy. So they identified a number of sources. These were blogs. And those sources went into this website called Blogging Portal. So this was the original curation here is source curation, and it's done by human beings. They say this blog is worth following. It's publishing material which is relevant to this community. And there may be quite a few of these. And every time they published a new article, it went into the engine. And then the editors would manually tag each resource according to a taxonomy and highlight the best ones. And the best ones got sent out to subscribers and to followers on social media, and users could browse the tags and find the most interesting articles written by these blogs using the tags and using search. By the way, the site always sent the user back to the original content. This wasn't about robbing people of traffic. We're trying to drive traffic to publishers here. We're adding value to the members of the community by curating and organizing this diverse set of content. So that's great in theory, but then the humans left the project because they were all volunteers, they all finished university. So they stopped tagging. Once people stopped tagging, you couldn't use the tags to find the content. The search never worked and there was never any promotion. And finally, of course, blogs went a bit passé. So that was an interesting experiment, and in fact, it was quite successful. By the end of it, there were well over 1,000 blogs being tracked. We have well over 300,000 posts which have been curated, and they're in 21 different languages in a few years. So what I want to do is I want to bring some machinery into this model. For a start, I'm not going to limit it to blogs. The editors or the members of a community can decide to curate any source, but nevertheless, source curation should always be done by human beings. It should be human beings who decide that this community is interested in the content coming out of these sources. All of the content, however, needs to come in. It's not just an RSS feed. We need to actually every time one of these sources publishes something, we need to crawl it. And that's when the engine comes in. The engine reads all of this content, identifies the language, obviously, and then auto-tags it. And then the editors can do what human beings do best, which is highlight the high-quality things, the high-quality content, and they can also validate and correct the tags added by the semantic analysis engine. And then people can using faceted search in the way I showed you just a minute ago, they can discover the most interesting content curated by this community using this engine. And perhaps we may also allow site users to highlight quality or upvote quality in a way similar to perhaps Reddit. And you can have the best ofs going out by e-newsletter and social media, and also content by theme as well. What's really interesting here is that this is a way of bringing a community together, giving them some tools so that they can curate interesting content, but then allowing them to improve the quality of the semantic analysis engine. In fact, what this is, it's crowdsourcing the training of a semantic analysis engine. So that's the basic picture. You have a hashtag platform, one platform, which allows people to launch a community. They identify the sources they want to curate, and they use the hashtag engine to help them organize this content. And in the process, they improve the accuracy of their engine. Each subsite will have its own engine after a while, because this subsite might be looking at employment policy, another one might be talking about video games, I mean, whatever. But they may start with a generic semantic analysis engine, but over time, they will train it specifically for their area of interest. So that's really what I want to build. As you can see, there are quite a few different language technologies in the engine. The one I'm focusing on is the semantic analysis, because I want a system which can be trained by the users of the system, and in a dynamic, ongoing and continuous way. But other technologies I'm interested in is obviously machine translation, very important, and possibly these added value services like sentiment analysis and auto text summary could also be quite useful in the future. Thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate it. Don't hesitate to drop me a line. I look forward to hearing from you.